Hello, and welcome back. Today again, we are talking about teenagers. Let us talk about teenagers. Teenagers are it's an age group in between childhood and adulthood, and this is a very sensitive population. It is individuals who really need human being support, parent support, everybody's support, so that they can stand, because there's a lot of things that goes in between them. Today here, I'm so grateful to have Mrs. Wayaki. Anne Wayaki, she's not new to you. She's been here with me before. You can go back and see what we talked about. We talked about stress actually. And today again, she's here, so we can really work as a team, talk about teenagers. And so for that reason, I want to welcome her and at least introduce who a teenager is to us and to our viewers.
Thank you very much, Isabella, for such a great opportunity to even come and talk about teenagers this evening. And this is a group of people, or a group of our children, or children that cannot be ignored. And so when we talk of teenagers, we want to know what is the age group. What age group are we talking about? And in this aspect, teenagers, we start, there's of course 0 to when they are born, to, let's say, go all the way to 10 years old, and then between 10, 11-ish there to 13, we call them pre-teenagers. They are just before they enter the teenage years. And then from the age of 13 to the age of 19, though that is the group we are talking about tonight, and those are the ones that we refer to as teenagers. So they are the adolescents all the way to the age of 19.
Oh, thank you so much. It's very important even to know about the years, so you don't say, oh, my child is not a teenager yet because it's 13 or 14. That child has already entered that age. And so now, how from your profession as a nurse practitioner, so how do you see, or how can you tell our viewers that happens physically to this age group?
It's good that you're quite specific when we talk of physical, because the growth and development involves physical, emotional, physiological, and we would call this spiritual for that matter. And when we talk of physical characteristics or changes that teenagers go through, or that characterize teenage years, we are talking about the body. The physical body does change as the child is growing. They get a growth spurt that predispose them to start having physical features that were not there as they prepare to become adults. And therefore, during the teenage years, you will find that if it is girls, the girls will start getting that shape of a young lady. So their body shape will change. They will start developing breasts, which is in a span of from the age of 10 all the way to the age of 16. By that time, they have already developed. And they will also have, they're preparing to get their menstrual cycle, the period. And so therefore, that is, you will start seeing those changes. Some of them start getting acne. They could get acne, or just the facial features do change. And I would say that these ears are ears that are full of, also inside them, it's not just the body, the outward body is changing. It is, there's some hormonal changes in them that is happening. So they are also dealing with the way they feel, and also definitely, how you feel also affects how you behave. And that is why parents start, or the people in authority start seeing change in behavior, because they are changing. They are changing in every aspect, physically, and even inside them, the hormones are also changing. The main hormones that we are talking about when we talk about hormones, we are talking about the growth hormones. because they are growing. And also we are talking about hormones that involve the reproductive system of the child, and therefore we are talking about the hormones that control estrogen and progesterone as they are preparing to have their period start coming. So all that change in hormones cause them to change physically. So you start seeing now they're taking the shape of a lady, if it's a girl. The boys will now start having hair in their armpits and in their private areas. They will also start having their penis get larger, their testicles. So when you look at them physically, you see those changes happening, and they are now starting to develop as a young man too.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, wow, that's good. Good to know those things because if say for example this is a new parent who have this is the first teenagers, it's very important to know those things because you don't want to go outside the box and think, why is this person, why is this child behaving like this, right? Now, before we go even to behaviors and emotional and psychological changes, do you have as a nurse practitioner, do you hear or what are the main complaints physically of this age group?
From experience, and also I remember 2 years ago we attended a conference, and in that conference there were teenagers, and their main issue as they were talking, and you hear this all the time from the teenagers, is that nobody understands them, nobody listens to them. So at that particular time they start seeing that their parents are not really connected. There's a disconnect. They start seeing a disconnect, and they start feeling like they are not understood, they are not being treated the way they want to be treated, because they are growing and they are changing. This is a time where they are now getting their identity as adults, but also because they are still children, it's kind of like they're in that in between. At one time they'll feel like they're adults, at another time they feel like they're children. So there's that until that balance is struck, and now they can be called adults. And therefore at that time, their time they want to be heard. At that time there is a time they want to be listened to. There's a time now they want to speak out, and those are also changes that parents are not used for.
Yeah.
So at that point now, if you're a parent, you realize, or the best thing is you are required to realize or to understand that you got to change also, to become flexible and change maybe your ways of parenting than how you were doing it when they were little children. I, from experience point of view, like if we are talking about our community, and I know I want you to go to the next thing that you want us to discuss, but usually you find that we like using, like spanking, and that's a time where you say, before you spank a child, you are counting down 1, 2, 3. And then when they get to the teenage years, you're counting 1 and nobody's moving, 2 and 3, 4, 5, and at that time you realize that that method is not working anymore. There will be some little red flags that will tell you that you need to change as a parent.
Okay, and that's very important actually, so that once you start, don't just get angry or start using words that will diminish them. It is a time, maybe it's a bell that will quicken you to know, oh, my child could be turned to teenager before I even know it, or that those are the things that I had been told. So that's very important.
And it's good, Isabella, we are talking about this. It reminds me of what my dad used to say. And he used to say that you could still, even a stone, you can talk to a stone, because you don't know if a stone hears or does not hear. The reference for that with my father was talk to them. So maybe at that point now, it's not the spanking that will work, it is more talking to them. They may seem like they are not even listening, they are not hearing, but just keep talking. So that at that point now you have changed from spanking them, now you want to talk to them.
And that's what actually to support that is that this is the time now to include them when you are talking about decision making. You need to bring them in. This is not the time to tell you, I said you do 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. Now they want to reason. Mrs. Wayaki has said that they want to be listened. So if you keep on telling them, I say, they feel that I'm not being listened. And so what that happens, it might transfer itself to something we call emotional. Now they become so emotional. Why is it that my mother doesn't listen to me? Now they are understanding more than they were before. They could get things like anger from that. They could feel like I'm not good enough. That's why my mother is not listening to me. And so for that matter, we want you to remain there and subscribe, because we want to talk about the emotional part of a teenager, and we want to talk about psychological, and we want to talk about spiritual, and also socially. How should these teenagers stay or live in a community? How do they behave when other people are there? What do they behave? You do not listen to them. Are they acting? How are they acting? Mrs. Wayaki talked about the behavior. So how are they gonna behave? All these things are things we'll be discussing. And so please subscribe so we can walk this journey together. But before we close, do you have something you wanna add concerning physiological?
You did speak about they become emotional, and I just want to elaborate, and I know we will be getting into that after the break. But when you talk emotional, I want to go back kind of to when I talked about the hormones. Sometimes this emotional reaction that they have is not necessarily because of what is actually what the parent is doing or the authority figure is doing. Actually, it's because also inside them there's that emotional thing happening. All their hormones are all over, and the hormones, they are kind of trying to also understand what is going on inside them. And then now, so whenever you do not listen to them, it's kind of like an external stressor, not just, and already they have an internal stressor. So you can imagine they are dealing with whatever is happening or the changes that are happening, and now they are getting this also pressure from outside. So that becomes quite too much for them, and that is why now they will start reacting. Could be anger, and we will get much more to that.
We'll get into it, and that's very important actually to say. I didn't even think about it for a minute. There's internal, the internal conflict. There's this stage is about who am I, and so the internal is really pressurizing them, and now there's external because maybe you didn't listen to them. Because of what is happening in the environment. And
to add even more, before we even close, Isabella, now we are talking about external. That is why now, and we maybe will dwell on that a little bit later, but the peer pressure. See, now the parent is the external force that is also having some impact on them, and so they tend to look at what is the easier way. And that is where now the peer pressure also comes in.
Oh yeah, that's true. We have a lot to talk about teenagers. So and the reason we're talking about teenagers, because if we do not mold them the right way, this is the time they find that loophole and just go, and they might go and never come back. So it's very important that you stay with us so we know how we can really take good care of them. All right, otherwise have a good week, and we'll see you at some point.
Thank you.
Thank you.